After 16 years of relentless dedication to my career, a seemingly unending cycle of demanding residency shifts, intricate surgeries that stretched into the early hours, and a complete absence of vacations, I finally reached a point where I felt entitled to indulge in a long-held desire. I had sacrificed so much postponed personal gratification for the sake of professional advancement, and endured countless hardships in the pursuit of excellence. It was time to reward myself, to acknowledge the years of tireless effort and unyielding commitment. My reward materialized in the form of a midnight blue Porsche 911 Carrera GTS, the culmination of years of deferred dreams. The Porsche was more than just a car. It was a symbol of my perseverance, a tangible representation of the sacrifices I had made and the goals I had achieved. It was a testament to my unwavering dedication and a reminder that hard work does indeed pay off. The moment I first laid eyes on it, I knew I had made the right decision. The sleek lines, the powerful stance, the deep, lustrous paint. It was everything I had ever imagined and more. Slipping into the driver's seat for the first time was an experience that transcended mere automotive appreciation. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. The scent of the leather, the feel of the sculpted seats, the perfectly weighted steering wheel, every detail was meticulously crafted to create an unparalleled driving experience. Just sitting behind the wheel, even before turning the key, was enough to evoke a sense of profound satisfaction. It felt as though the universe had finally aligned, that the scales of life had finally balanced after years of leaning heavily in the direction of obligation and hardship. That Saturday morning, bathed in the golden light of a late summer sunrise, I meticulously parked my prized possession in its designated spot in my driveway. I was careful to position it perfectly, ensuring it was safely away from the sidewalk to minimize the risk of accidental scratches or dings. The motion sensor lights recently installed would deter any potential midnight mischief makers, and the brand new security camera, strategically placed, would provide a vigilant electronic eye, documenting any activity within its field of vision. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just another peaceful suburban morning. Little did I know that this tranquility was merely a deceptive facade, masking the storm that was about to erupt. A storm that would challenge everything I thought I knew about my neighborhood, my neighbors, and the very concept of community. As I locked the car and turned toward the house, I had no premonition of the bizarre and infuriating events that would unfold in the hours to come. I was blissfully unaware of the impending violation, the audacious scheme that was already being hatched in the mind of someone who considered herself the self-appointed guardian of our neighborhood's aesthetic order. I headed out for a quick gym run, needing to maintain my physical health after so many surgeries, followed by a grocery haul to replenish the refrigerator, aiming for no more than a 2-hour excursion. The gym provided a much-needed opportunity to distress and recharge, while the grocery store was a necessary chore, ensuring I had the sustenance to continue my demanding work schedule. As I drove away, I glanced back at the Porsche, admiring its beauty one last time before disappearing around the corner. It looked perfect, gleaming in the sunlight, a silent sentinel guarding my home. Upon my return, however, an unsettling feeling washed over me even before I fully pulled into the driveway. An incongruity, a subtle discordance in the familiar landscape of my property, sent a shiver of unease down my spine. Even before I could fully process what was amiss, my eyes landed on 2 unfamiliar men standing beside my Porsche. They were crouched down, their faces inches from the wheels and mirrors, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and appraisal. One of them held a phone in his hand, seemingly engrossed in researching the car's specifications. Their presence was jarring, an unwelcome intrusion into my private space. I hadn't even parked yet, my car still rolling slowly toward the garage, when I instinctively rolled down the window and asked them, my voice laced with a mixture of suspicion and apprehension, what they were doing. Their response was immediate and utterly bewildering. They told me they were there for the car, explaining that they had seen an ad online and had come to claim it, as the listing stated first come, first served. A wave of confusion washed over me. First, I dismissed it as a simple misunderstanding. A case of mistaken identity. Perhaps a neighbor was selling a similar model, and these men had inadvertently stumbled upon my driveway. But the unsettling feeling persisted, nagging at the back of my mind. Then, as I looked closer, I noticed something that sent a jolt of disbelief and anger through my veins. A bold red for sale sign. Its presence, a garish and unwelcome contrast to the sleek lines of my Porsche, was taped inside the windshield. My car, my sign, but emphatically, definitively not mine. The realization that someone had brazenly placed this sign on my property, advertising my car for sale without my knowledge or consent, was infuriating. The men were visibly confused when I vehemently denied that the car was for sale. They exchanged glances, their initial enthusiasm replaced by a mixture of suspicion and uncertainty. And then came the real punch. The revelation that transformed my confusion into outrage. They said a woman named Karen had posted the listing. Said she was in charge of community compliance and had the title ready for handoff. The name, Karen Whitmore, hung in the air like a toxic cloud, instantly dispelling any lingering doubt about the source of this outrageous deception. Karen Whitmore. The very mention of her name was enough to trigger a visceral reaction of annoyance and frustration. She was the self-proclaimed arbiter of all things proper in our neighborhood, the HOA president, unofficial neighborhood overlord, and self-appointed guardian of aesthetic order. She'd made my life miserable since I moved in. Every minor infraction, every perceived deviation from her meticulously crafted vision of suburban perfection, was met with a barrage of passive-aggressive notes, thinly veiled threats, and condescending pronouncements. I knew her well, intimately well, even if I didn't want to. Fueled by a potent cocktail of anger and disbelief, I marched directly to her house, my heart pounding with each step. I didn't bother to call or text or email. I wanted the satisfaction of seeing her face as I confronted her with her outrageous actions. I wanted to witness her feeble attempts to explain away her blatant disregard for my property rights. Audacity of her actions was simply beyond comprehension. As I approached her front door, I rehearsed what I would say, trying to maintain a semblance of composure despite the boiling rage that threatened to consume me. I wanted to be calm, collected, and rational, but the sheer absurdity of the situation made it difficult to maintain my equilibrium. When she answered the door, she didn't even act surprised. There was no flicker of guilt or remorse in her eyes, no hint of apprehension about the consequences of her actions. She looked me up and down, her gaze condescending and dismissive, as if I were merely interrupting her spa day, some trivial annoyance disrupting her carefully curated schedule of manicures and gossip. She casually told me the car violated neighborhood standards by attracting the wrong kind of attention, said she had already listed it and had a buyer lined up, claimed it was for the greater good. Words were delivered with an air of detached superiority, as if she were doing me a favor by unilaterally deciding to sell my property. The sheer arrogance of her statement was breathtaking. She genuinely believed that she had the right to impose her own subjective aesthetic standards on my life, to dictate what I could and could not own, to deprive me of my hard-earned possessions simply because they didn't align with her narrow-minded vision of suburban harmony. The justification, the flimsy excuse that she was acting for the greater good, was particularly galling. It was a transparent attempt to mask her own personal prejudices and control issues with a veneer of altruism. That moment, standing there, staring at this smug woman who thought she had the right to sell my property, something in me snapped. Years of suppressed frustration, of biting my tongue and enduring her petty tyrannies, finally reached a breaking point. I wanted to unleash a torrent of anger, to scream and shout and tear down the carefully constructed facade of civility that had constrained me for so long. But I didn't yell. I didn't get angry. I didn't even argue. There was no satisfaction to be gained from engaging in a shouting match with someone so deeply entrenched in their own self-righteousness. Yelling would only serve to validate her perception of me as an unstable and irrational individual. Instead, I took a deep breath, consciously calming my racing heart and focusing my thoughts. I realized that there was a more effective way to deal with this situation. a way that would not only reclaim my property, but also expose her for the manipulative and power-hungry individual that she truly was. Because what Karen didn't know was that I had upgraded every inch of my security system 3 weeks ago. Driven by a growing sense of unease about her constant surveillance and harassment, I had invested in a state-of-the-art security system. I had installed high-resolution cameras, strategically placed to cover every angle of my property. That Porsche was covered from 4 angles with motion-detecting AI-tagged video. Every movement, every sound, every interaction that occurred within the vicinity of my car was meticulously recorded and stored in a secure cloud server. The footage, clear as daylight, captured every detail, every nuance, every subtle gesture that would ultimately prove to be her undoing. I calmly excused myself, promising to consider her offer and leaving her standing on her doorstep. Smug smile plastered across her face. She undoubtedly believed that she had intimidated me, that I would meekly comply with her demands and relinquish my beloved Porsche without a fight. But as I walked away, a sense of quiet determination washed over me. I knew that I held the key to her downfall, the irrefutable evidence that would expose her lies and bring her to justice. I had a plan, a carefully crafted strategy that would leverage her own arrogance and overconfidence against her. I would bide my time, gather my resources, and then unleash the full force of the law and public opinion upon her. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect of her impending downfall that night. Fueled by a mixture of righteous anger and steely determination, I reviewed the footage from my security cameras. The evidence was even more damning than I had anticipated. There she was, walking right up to the car, taking photos, placing the sign, even using a measuring tape to appear official. The camera captured her every move, her every expression, her every attempt to portray herself as the legitimate owner of my Porsche. The video was a masterpiece of self-incrimination, a visual record of her blatant disregard for the law and her contempt for my property rights. Later that day, she came back with a clipboard and showed the car to 2 different strangers. She wasn't pretending to be the HOA president, she was pretending to own the car. That was the ultimate confirmation of her malicious intent. The footage revealed that she had not only placed the for sale sign on my car, but had also actively engaged in a campaign to deceive potential buyers. She had fabricated a story about being the owner of the vehicle, providing false information and actively soliciting offers. Her actions were not merely a misguided attempt to enforce neighborhood standards. They were a deliberate and calculated act of fraud, a brazen attempt to enrich herself at my expense. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, I knew exactly what to do. I immediately sent the footage to a lawyer first, a trusted colleague who specialized in property law and had a reputation for being a tenacious and uncompromising advocate. He reviewed the footage and was aghast at the audacity of her actions. He assured me that I had a strong case and that he would pursue it with the full force of the law. Then, I sent the footage to the police. I filed a formal complaint detailing the events of the past few days and providing them with the video evidence to support my allegations. The police took the matter seriously, recognizing the potential for criminal charges and launching an immediate investigation. Then, for good measure, to the local Facebook group that she practically ruled with an iron fist.
I knew that.
Exposing her actions to the community would not only serve to discredit her but also to warn others about her deceptive and manipulative behavior. The Facebook group was her domain, her platform for disseminating her opinions and enforcing her rules. I wanted to disrupt her control, to shatter the illusion of authority that she had so carefully constructed. The reaction was immediate. Video got over 1,200 views in 12 hours. The comment section exploded with a mixture of outrage, disbelief, and schadenfreude. Neighbors who had previously been too scared to speak up suddenly remembered every minor tyranny Karen had committed. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment finally found an outlet. Stories began to surface about her arbitrary enforcement of HOA rules, her petty fines, and her condescending treatment of anyone who dared to challenge her authority. Her behavior wasn't an isolated event. It was just the first time she'd been caught. The floodgates had opened, and the tide of public opinion had turned decisively against her. By Monday, She had been removed from the HOA board after an emergency vote. The remaining members of the board, realizing the potential for legal repercussions and the damage to their own reputations, swiftly distanced themselves from her. The emergency vote was a landslide, with every member voting in favor of her removal. By Thursday, the police had launched an investigation into attempted fraud and impersonation. The investigation was thorough and comprehensive, with detectives interviewing witnesses, gathering evidence, and meticulously documenting her actions. By Friday, her realtor license, which she had bragged about for years, was suspended pending formal review. The state licensing board, upon reviewing the evidence, deemed her actions to be a clear violation of the Code of Ethics and suspended her license pending a full investigation. I heard she tried to spin the situation, said she was trying to protect the neighborhood from chaos, said I was unstable. She even claimed the Porsche was attracting unwanted types. But none of it mattered. Her attempts to deflect blame and portray herself as the victim fell on deaf ears. The community had seen the evidence, heard the stories, and made up their own minds. The buyers she contacted testified. My footage made the rounds on local news. Even the HOA that once feared her turned their back on her. She disappeared after that, left the neighborhood quietly in the middle of the night. Someone said she moved back in with her sister on the other side of the city. The for sale sign she used? I framed it and hung it in my garage. A reminder of the day someone tried to rob me in broad daylight and lost everything. As for the Porsche, still mine. Still parked in the driveway, and now even Karen wouldn't dare touch it. The memory of her humiliation and the fear of further legal repercussions would forever prevent her from crossing my path again.